Go ahead.
I don't have a question, but I have sort of an update
Okay,
that I
yeah,
wanted
good.
like to discuss.
Hmm.
So it's been pretty good. Like after that initial shift, like everything changed. Like all I've been experiencing is peace. Um, but I see like what you said like some time ago about a honeymoon period,
Hmm.
and it's not that that's over because peace is like ever present.
Hmm.
But I've started to see like more conditioning and more patterns, and I
Yeah.
have been aware of um like things coming back. And sometimes I get this feeling of being stuck and
Yeah.
I get pretty impatient, but then it just relax and everything relaxes again.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's like yeah, it's been like that for the
Yeah.
past like weeks.
Yeah, that that like initial shift from just kind of it's just kind of like unbinding from thoughts. It's not even really the honeymoon phase that I'm talking about. Um it's past that. It's like you haven't exactly reached it yet. It's it's even more it's even more than what your experience is. But that's just like this, yeah, it's this peace, tranquility, um freedom from thinking in the way that that you're used to. You're not so bound to it or like enslaved to it or prisoner to it, sort of say. um so it's good because it's just you notice like such a contrast. You notice that such a contrast, and then it kind of feels like it kind of just comes in again. Like that piece is like almost like this. The thoughts are kind of clouds. They're like clouds, these thoughts and feelings. So it's just kind of like this parting of the clouds, and then you're just enjoying this kind of open, the open sky and the like it's like the sun that's just kind of coming through. That it's like you haven't seen that in a while because of the identification with the thoughts and the feelings, which is like being identified with the clouds. So in that experience, it's like this parting, but then they kind of start to come back, kind of thing. And that's when there's like that old conditioning coming up, and more so conditioning that you haven't seen before. So I actually posted something like this. It's related today, talking about the layers of conditioning. That's the title in the post. It's called Layers of Conditioning. So it's very much like an onion kind of effect, where you you kind of you notice the conditioning, you're seeing it, experiencing this conditioning, but you're also experiencing the repressed emotions. So the conditioning is like it's hidden, like you weren't aware of it before. So this is like the like more of like the unconscious mind, that you're not aware of it, but now you're starting to become aware of it, and you're also becoming aware of the repressed emotions. So the repressed emotions are basically emotions that we are resisting, but we don't know we're resisting. So that starts coming up too. So there's like a new kind of layer that then it's being like peeled back, or like you're exploring this. And it's kind of like it can almost comes in waves, where there's kind of like this peace and relaxation, and then you're enjoying that. But as that relaxation increases, it's like the mind's relaxed, which means that there's less resistance, which means that there's less of this pushing down those suppressed emotions. So now it's like it almost feels like now you're giving some time to process those emotions. And you'll see it in your life. It kind of it's just almost like a perfect storm kind of thing. It's like perfect kind of scenario. Like maybe it's slow at work, or like life is kind of slow right now. Maybe you're getting some support from family and friends, but you're able to kind of, relax a little bit more. It's like less pressure, less people are calling you. It just kind of feels like more like, alone time, to then for these things to kind of, you know, come out of the shadows, sort of say, and be seen. So then you're experiencing more of that. And like I showed in the diagram, the first is like more like personal stuff. then it's like family stuff, then it's cultural stuff, and then it's like humanity stuff, like in that order of like the conditioning that you meet. So for someone, let's say, that hasn't done any kind of like of that work, that hasn't seen any of that stuff, a lot of it is just kind of you know, personal subconscious type of stuff. And then it's like family stuff, maybe family addictions or family conditioning, all this type of family stuff. And then it's like, okay, now culturally, right? Someone was bringing up earlier today, like a lot of like just conditioning of like religion, of like their family's religion, and then cultural religion, like ancestors and stuff like that, that they're meeting a lot of that type of conditioning. So it's like it's just a natural process. It's part of it. And the key is just relaxing. It's just the more there's that relaxation, the more of that conditioning can be seen, and those emotions can be processed. What kind of startles a lot of people is it's just that contrast of like, wow, it's like there's so much peace and freedom, and then it's like boom, it's like you're you know, like smacked back to like, you know, the ordinary. There's that closing, and then there's the now the I want to get back there to the peace and the freedom, and I don't want to deal with any of this stuff anymore. So then that's more resistance, right? So there's resistance to that, which then it's just um it's like a rude awakening, because you're it's like now you're seeing more stuff, right? It's like, wow, it's like it almost has this effect where it's like you're more sensitive, you're seeing more, like you can't really get away from it. Like, how do I unsee that? You're starting to see it like in your family, your friends, you're just seeing more and more of it, right? So in a way, it's like you're opening the eyes kind of thing. Do you see that like in your life, that you're able to you're picking up on more of these patterns now, friends and
Yeah.
family and colleagues and stuff like this? You're like, it's the same stuff, like you've seen it, like it's like you've been seeing it but you haven't been seeing it, you know what I mean? It's like it's the same situation at work and same friends and family, right? It's not like they didn't change, it's not like new stuff. So that's what I mean, is like it's like you've been blinded by, you know, to it. You haven't seen it. So now it's like it's almost like seeing it with like a new set of eyes, right? You're able to see stuff, and you're able to see this that others can't see, right? So and so you can see like they're just, you know, it's unconscious. They can't see it. They can't see it, but more and more is being shown, and it's about relaxing. It's about relaxing, because whenever there's this resistance is suffering, right? The resistance to then what you're seeing. Now you're seeing more. Now there's resistance to it. Well, now you're knowing about these emotions. It's like, ooh, I didn't know that was there. I don't want that. I don't want that. So now there's resistance to that. So that's where like the relaxation is this resistance relaxing. It's this mind that's this overly resistant. It's overly reactive, which that's why I said it's like it's always having like the awareness of that resistance. By being aware of the resistance, that resistance starts to relax. By being aware of that reactivity starts to diminish. So that's the like the first step, is becoming aware of that, because all of that reactivity is a result of that conditioning. But when you're not aware of it, it's like at that point you are identified as that conditioning. You can't see it. So, and that's what's the unconscious patterning. That's what then makes you blind to it. It's like, oh, how did I? This stuff is new. It's like it's not new. It's just you're actually identified with that. But so now when there's this kind of unbinding from the identification with the thought, now there's the experience of like, here's the thoughts arising, the thought activity, and now it's like you've retreated. It's a step back from that activity, which now you're able to observe it. So this stage is the awareness of the activity. And like this, you're able to just be aware of that activity more and more, and you're kind of seeing where there's still the identification. There's certain activity that there's more of an identification with, and that's what you're able to see. And you start seeing, you could say, when when you get caught up in that identification and believing it to be true. And it's like, what we could say is like slipping into like ignorance, believing to be limited. And then when that belief in being limited is believed to be true, then you start suffering that belief essentially. So it's like seeing it. It's just seeing it more and more. And as you're seeing more and more of it, it's like it's not like it's disappearing. It's just like all of this unconscious. I use it as like the symbolically as like darkness. Like you're unaware of it. It's like it's darkness. So but by seeing it, you're illuminating it. You're enlightening it. So it's like the light shining on a shadow. As soon as the light shines on the shadow, there's no more shadow. Right? That darkness disappears. So by seeing it more and more, it's disappearing. It doesn't have that same sort of compulsive pull to it, where it like draws you in, and you could say you lose yourself in that activity in the sense of being identified with it. You start to see it, and then you like I said before in some other of the guidance sessions, is like you see it like after the fact. So you see it in hindsight, in retrospect. You're like, oh damn, that's when I was identified. Like you'll be able to like reflect on it an hour after the situation. You'll get in an argument with someone, then an hour back, you're like, it's because I was like super identified there, and that's why. Right. So then you'll start catching it sooner and sooner. It won't take you an hour to then catch it. You'll catch it immediately after, and then you'll start catching it in the midst of it. And then you'll start catching it as it almost comes up as an invitation at that point when you start seeing it more and more. It's like, you want to do this old pattern thing again? And then it almost feels like it's optional, because you're seeing it. So you're seeing it basically before it arises. You feel like, oh, that's that pattern that just wants to prove that I'm right in the argument. That's that pattern that wants to prove that I'm, better than the other. That's that pattern that wants to, put them down so I can feel superior. So you start seeing this pattern more and more. And like I said, that's how you're able to see these mind games, is because you're watching it. If you're not watching it, then you're getting identified, and you're getting, you could say, like trapped in the game. Like that's the kind of it, that's in a sense that's what the matrix is the mind, right? But by being observant, by watching it. So it's patience. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen overnight. But it's good that you notice it. It's good that you notice it. So that's like that stage 2. In another post I wrote, is like stage 1, we're identified with the activity. Stage 2, we're aware of the activity. And stage 3, we're aware of awareness. Like there's awareness of awareness. And that's what you get a taste of in these meetings, is just being aware of being aware. And that's what actually, it almost, in a way, it almost feels like it stirs up even more of that to be seen. It feels good in the meetings, and then there's after, it's like something was stirred up. It's like it catalyzes it, the process, it speeds it up. But also at the same time, you're able to, there's a feeling of being more stabilized as awareness and not losing yourself in that activity. So it's this kind of stage for a lot of you, that it's like watching the activity, but also being aware of being aware in these meetings. And then you'll start seeing it. You'll start being aware of being aware, at home, if you're meditating here and there, or just spontaneous when you're relaxing, it just kind of comes up, and you find you're like, oh, I didn't try and do it. It just happens. That's just kind of how it is. But it allows this kind of experience of almost like transforming everyday life. You're washing dishes, but you're able to watch the body washing dishes. And that's the awareness of the activity. So that's the stage 2. And then the stage 3 is you're aware that you're aware of washing dishes. it's like going meta on it. There's another level. And that's what then you're then aware of yourself in the midst of activity. And by being aware of yourself, then you're experiencing the same kind of, experience that you experience with your eyes closed on these, meditations, but you're experiencing that same experience while washing dishes and eating and cleaning and driving the car and going to work. Like that's kind of how it just gradually kind of floods into everyday life. It starts that it's not really a quality, but our true nature, that happiness, that love, that peace, that freedom just starts kind of what's the word here, pervading or permeating, one of the two. It starts pervading the everyday life experience. It just starts feeling more and more natural. So long answer there. Does that kind of resonate there, Mateo? Does it seem accurate of what you're describing?
Yeah, totally. Like I can see everything you say, like not from understanding, but like actually experientially speaking. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like what I'm describing, you can agree. You're saying like, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
going with that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
That's how you know I'm not full of it, right? You like how would I be able to, right? That's the thing.
Yeah, yeah.
You can only do that if you've walked the path, right? If and you're kind of saying, well, hey, well, watch out for that stone. There's a log there, go around the mud, right? You're only able to do that because you've gone before, right?